The show Victorious was one that had a lot of people watching because of its interesting cast of characters, fun stories, and of course, the songs that made it infinitely entertaining to watch. It was one of Nickelodeon's best shows in its day, and many were sad when it suddenly got canceled despite being top dog. However, if you were to go and rewatch the series, you're going to notice that there were some key mistakes that were left in the show for one reason or another, and it's very odd. Allow us to show you 10 mistakes that were left in Victorious. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 10. No prom? Okay, let's start out with one that might be easily explained depending on how you look at things. You see, in a key episode of Victorious, we find out that the school doesn't have a prom, and Tori is obviously very distraught about this and works to get it back via prom, which is a very Nickelodeon way of handling things, but we digress. However, if you actually remember the pilot to Victorious, you'll remember that everyone's favorite mean puppet called out Kat for not having a date to the prom last year, which is a problem because, as we just established, the school didn't have a prom, right? Here's the thing, when it comes to TV, there are loose rules that are accepted. Mainly, that the pilots are very different from the main season because they're usually filmed way before the main series is made, because it's used to gauge whether the show deserves to live. That's why you hear the term unaired pilot, like with Game of Thrones, Star Trek, which had 2 pilots, and so on. Also, since this was a throwaway line, it's possible the writers forgot about it, or just didn't care. So while it is a mistake, it's not the biggest one. Unlike number 9, Helen Dubois. One of the things that honestly made networks like Disney Channel and Nickelodeon fun is that, technically speaking, their live-action shows were all connected, and as such, fun crossovers and spin-offs happened, like Victorious and Big Time Rush, or the show Sam and Cat fusioning Victorious with iCarly. In one Victorious episode, Helen Dubois from Drake and Josh appeared as herself, in perfect character, and was revealed to be the new principal of Hollywood Arts. Crossover confirmed, right? Wrong. Because Helen is never shown again, and in the next episode, they show Drake and Josh as a TV show, which means the shows aren't in the same universe. But then how did Helen get there? This is a very odd mistake for all sorts of reasons, because they seemed to commit to something and then back out of it the very next episode. And to be clear, they said her name was Helen Dubois, and she acted just like she did in Drake and Josh. So it wasn't like it was 2 characters with the same name. So how and why did this go down like it did? Number 8. Stuck at No Zoo. Here's a classic TV trope. 2 characters go to a restaurant, and both of them just so happen to forget their money to pay for the food. For Tori and Robbie, this happened at a sushi restaurant called No Zoo, and despite their best efforts, they can't contact anyone because one didn't bring their phone and the other didn't have phone service, because the phone plan was too expensive. So thus, they're forced to work off the money by chopping squids and singing as they do it. One problem. We see Victoria using the place's computer to send out a tweet. So why couldn't she just DM her friends to let them know what is going on? Plus, because it's a restaurant, they had to have a phone line up for call-in orders. Not to mention, the owners or workers should have had phones themselves, so thus, someone should have been able to contact someone to get help and money. And yet, no one thought of that, and thus they had to chop squid until their friends eventually arrived. Number 7. Food fight. When it comes to Jade West, there's one simple rule about her that you'll need to know. You don't mess with her, ever. Seriously, she'll kill you. Or worse, she'll make your life miserable. Just ask Tori in many episodes. Anyway, during one key episode, some very bratty girls were flirting with Jade's man, and when Jade made it clear that she was picking a fight with the wrong person, said bratty girls called Hollywood Arts, the academy they go to, if you forgot, was for wannabes. Not taking the fight lying down, Jade and Sam go onto the karaoke stage and put on a performance that shuts up the bratty girls for good. But in that scene, Jade goes and grabs a burger off of the bratty girl's plate and sends food flying. But in a wide shot that immediately follows, everything on the plate is back to normal, as if it had never been disturbed. Obviously, this was a filming thing, but still, it was noticeable. Number 6. The Locker. One of the things that Victorious makes clear early on is that Tori Vega is the new girl in school, while the rest of her clique have been together since freshman year. And one of the traditions that Tori hadn't followed at the start of her tenure was decorating her locker in her own unique way. But during a flashback in the episode The Great Ping Pong Scam, which has lots of plot holes in it, we see a glimpse of freshman year, aka the year without Tori. And yet, in the background, we can see the locker that will eventually be Tori's, and it's designed in the exact way that Tori had it, meaning that it was already made by her despite the fact that she wasn't there yet. Oops. Obviously, this is just a small mistake, but it's one that's noticeable, you have to admit. Number 5. Sudden shower. As noted, Jade West is someone you don't want to screw around with, and if she has a bone to pick with you, she'll go and ride you until she gets her own twisted satisfaction. But in one episode, Jade takes this to the next level when she goes and pretends to have gotten a black eye because of Tori, and plays it up to go and be a victim in the eyes of everyone. In a scene from that episode, a misplaced bout of anger has one girl splashing Jade in the face with a drink. If you pause it right after that splashdown happens, you'll see that Jade's hair is fine. But in the following scene, when she's been checked up on, Jade's hair is doused. Where did that extra water or liquid come from? Because it definitely wasn't from that drink. Number 4. Two places at once. Wacky antics going on during major productions is another classic TV trope that shows like Victorious love to make fun with. And in one episode, Tori has to go and do part of a play while accidentally in zombie makeup. She plays this off in the first act of the performance well enough and races off stage in order to get help getting the makeup off. But if you pay attention, you can still see her on stage despite a jump cut showing her in the makeup chair, and then she magically appears in a different spot to return for the final act. How? Why? We don't know. Number 3. Tuna fish. What's that? Another mistake with Jade? The show must really not like her. We kid, we know they like her, but this mistake was pretty obvious when you consider a previous episode. Mainly, in one episode, Jade and Tori were part of a show called The Wood, and Jade was asked about things she didn't like. One of those things? Tuna fish. A simple yet understandable thing. But earlier on in the season, Jade notes that she had tuna fish for lunch and didn't seem grossed out by it or angry about it. So what turned her off to the meal? Number 2. Vanishing glasses. The episode Survival of the Hottest is considered one of the funniest episodes in the history of the show Victorious, as the crew are trapped in a trailer while during one of the hottest days. Naturally, they're all desperate to get cool and weird antics ensue. However, for Jade, again with the Jade mistakes, a very curious thing happens to her sunglasses. During certain chats with Tori, you see a series of jump cuts to the focus on expression of the two. But in one shot, Jade's glasses are on her head, but jump to the next shot and they're off her head entirely. And again, this is cuts from the same conversation. Where did they go? Number 1. Future phone call. The Wood is a TV show within the Victorious universe that is determined to get juicy storylines no matter what. And when they follow around Jade and Beck, a future call is shown in a clear mistake. Mainly in that the certain phone call is spliced together with footage, and you can see Beck, who is outside, is talking during the day, while Jade, who is inside near some windows, is taking the call at night. So, how did that happen exactly? So what do you think? What do you think of this look at Victorious and the mistakes that were left in the show despite them being contradictory or misleading in their own way? Which of the mistakes do you feel was the most egregious and should have been caught? Which ones do you feel were fine mistakes and didn't really mean anything overall? Do you know of other mistakes the show made? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.